My hands were covered in flour when the phone rang that Tuesday afternoon. I was making my late husband Thomas's favorite biscuits, had been making them every Tuesday for 47 years, even though he'd been gone 6 months now. Some habits, they keep you tethered to this world when grief tries to pull you under. I wiped my hands on my apron and reached for my cell phone, smiling when I saw Angela's name. My daughter. My only child. The girl I'd given everything to. "Hey, baby," I said, tucking the phone between my shoulder and ear so I could keep working the dough. "I was just thinking about you. You coming by for Sunday dinner this week?" Silence. Then her voice came through, cold as January rain. "Mom, I need you to listen carefully. I've sold the beach house." The words didn't make sense at first. I stopped kneading, flour dusting the air between my fingers and the counter.
"What?"
"Angela, what are you talking about?" "The beach house in Myrtle Beach. The one Dad left you. I had power of attorney, remember? I sold it. The closing was yesterday." Her voice was flat, businesslike, like she was reading off a grocery list. "I also sold your truck. The Ford. You don't need it anyway, you barely drive anymore." My heart started hammering against my ribs. The beach house. Thomas and I had spent every anniversary there for 30 years. He proposed to me on that porch. Our grandchildren, Angela's own kids, before she pushed them away with her selfishness, had learned to swim in that ocean. "Angela, you can't. That's my home. Your father wanted me to. We're leaving tomorrow, Mom." Her voice cut through mine like a knife through butter. "James got that position in Paris. We're moving to Europe. I needed the money for our new start."
"James."
Her husband of 15 years, a smooth-talking investment banker who'd never liked me much. Always looked at me like I was something he'd stepped in. "But baby, that house, it's all I have left of your father. It's where we—" "You'll be fine. You've got the house in Asheville. Social Security. You don't need a beach house at 72. She paused, and I heard ice clinking in a glass on her end. Middle of the afternoon, and she was already drinking. "Actually, that's another thing. We're going to need you to downsize. That Asheville house is too big for you anyway." My vision blurred. Not from tears, not yet. From something else. Something that felt like the ground opening up beneath my feet. "Are you saying you want to sell my home? The home I raised you in?" "I'm saying you're getting older, Mom. You need to be practical. Assisted living facilities are." "I'm 72, not 92. I'm healthy as a horse. For now." Her voice went sharp. "Look, I don't have time for this. The movers are coming in the morning. I'll send you an email with the account information for your portion of the beach house sale." "My portion?" My voice cracked. "Angela, it was my house. And I had power of attorney. Legally, everything's fine. Dad set it up that way so I could help you when you got too old to manage things yourself." Looks like that time came sooner than expected. The cruelty in her voice, my baby girl, the child I'd sat up with through chickenpox and heartbreaks and college finals. It cut deeper than any knife could. "Angela, please. Can we just talk about this? Come over. Let's have coffee and—" "I have to go."
"Goodbye, Mom."
The line went dead. I stood there in my kitchen, the afternoon sun streaming through the window Thomas had installed himself 20 years ago, flour still dusting my hands, and the silence pressed down on me like a physical weight. The biscuit dough sat half-formed on the counter. I looked at it, really looked at it, and something inside me just crumbled. I sank into the kitchen chair, the one with the wobbly leg I'd been meaning to fix, and let the tears come. My daughter had stolen my home, my memories, my husband's legacy. And she'd done it over the phone, casual as ordering takeout.
I don't know how long I sat there.
The sun moved across the floor, shadows stretching long and thin. Somewhere outside, Mrs. Patterson's dog was barking. A car drove past playing music too loud. The world kept spinning like nothing had happened, like my whole life hadn't just been pulled out from under me. Finally, as darkness started creeping into the corners of my kitchen, I stood up. My legs felt shaky, but they held me. I walked to the sink, washed the flour from my hands, and looked at my reflection in the window glass. 72 years old.
Widow.
Apparently homeless soon, if Angela had her way. But you know what? Looking at that reflection, I saw something else too. I saw Thomas's wife. I saw a woman who'd raised a daughter alone after my mama died. I saw someone who'd survived poverty, discrimination, and more heartbreaks than I cared to count. I saw a survivor. I dried my hands slowly, deliberately, and walked to Thomas's study, the room I'd barely entered since he passed. His desk sat exactly as he'd left it, papers still scattered, reading glasses resting on top of his Bible. On the corner of the desk, I noticed something I'd never paid attention to before, a manila envelope with my name written in Thomas's careful handwriting. Ruby. Open only when you need strength. My hands trembled as I reached for it. Whatever was inside that envelope, whatever Thomas had left me, I had a feeling it was about to change everything. My family says, "This channel won't reach 1,000 subscribers. Help me prove them wrong and comment where you're watching from." And honey, I was right.
What I found in that envelope.
It didn't just change everything. It turned my whole world upside down and gave me the weapons I needed to teach my daughter a lesson she'd never forget. I stood in Thomas's study for a long moment, just holding that envelope. His handwriting on the front was steady and sure, the way he'd been our whole marriage. Even toward the end, when the cancer was eating him alive, Thomas never lost that steadiness. My fingers traced over my name, Ruby. He'd written it with such care, pressing the pen deep into the paper, like he wanted to make sure those letters would last forever. The envelope was thick, heavy. Whatever was inside had weight to it. I sat down in his leather chair, the one that still smelled like his cologne and old books, and carefully opened the seal. Inside were documents, legal papers, and a letter, folded neat and precise, with "Read this first, my love" written across the top. My vision blurred as I unfolded it. Even now, 6 months after laying him in the ground, seeing his words felt like he was right there in the room with me. "My dearest Ruby," it began. "If you're reading this, I'm gone, and I suspect you're facing something difficult. I know our daughter, sweetheart. I know her better than she thinks I do, and I know you've been worried about her for years. The way she's changed, the way money's become more important to her than family. I pray I'm wrong. I pray Angela proves to be the generous, loving woman we raised. But if I'm right, if she's hurt you the way I fear she might, then you need to know the truth about what I've left behind. You think the beach house and the Asheville house are all we have. You think the savings account and my pension are the sum of our life's work. Ruby, my darling girl, you don't know the half of it." My hands started shaking. I had to set the letter down on the desk and take a breath before I could keep reading. "Do you remember my Uncle Bernard? The one who owned that construction company up in Virginia? He died 15 years ago, and he left everything to me, his only living relative. I never told you the full extent of it because I didn't want it to change us. I didn't want money to corrupt what we had. Bernard's company is worth $2.3 million. It's been operating under a management team all these years, generating income. I set up a trust. The paperwork is in this envelope.
There's more.
The beach house Angela thinks she sold? I transferred it into a separate trust 2 years ago, when I saw how she was changing. She had power of attorney over our joint assets, yes, but not over my personal trust properties. Whatever she sold, Ruby, it wasn't legally hers to sell. She's committed fraud, though she doesn't know it yet. The real beach house, our beach house, is still yours. Always was. I also purchased 3 rental properties in Charleston under the trust. They've been managed by a property company, generating monthly income that's been deposited into a private account. The statements are all here. And there's the cabin in the mountains. The one I told you I was looking at 5 years ago? I bought it, sweetheart. Paid in full. It's in the trust too, in your name. Ruby, you are not poor. You are not helpless. You are not dependent on our daughter's mercy. You are a wealthy woman with options. I set all this up because I love you, and because I wanted to protect you if Angela ever let greed poison her heart. I hoped she wouldn't. God knows I prayed she wouldn't. But I needed to prepare for the possibility. There's a lawyer, Benjamin Cole in Charlotte. His number is attached.
Call him.
He's been managing the trust and waiting for you to reach out. He'll explain everything and help you access all of it. One more thing, my love. Don't tell Angela. Not yet. Let her think she's won. Let her think she's left you with nothing. There's wisdom in patience. There's power in silence. When the time is right, you'll know what to do. I love you, Ruby Watkins. I loved you from the moment I saw you in that church basement 48 years ago, and I'll love you beyond the grave. Take care of yourself. Be strong. And remember, you're not alone. Forever yours, Thomas. I read that letter 3 times. Then 4. Then I just sat there, holding it against my chest, sobbing so hard my whole body shook. Not from sadness, though Lord knows I missed that man something fierce. I cried from relief, from shock, from the overwhelming feeling of being loved so completely that even death couldn't break it. Thomas had known. He'd seen what I'd been too afraid to admit, that our daughter had changed into someone we didn't recognize. And he'd protected me from it. The documents in the envelope laid it all out, clear as day. Property deeds, bank statements, trust documents with my name written in bold letters. The cabin in the mountains, I found photos of it, a beautiful log home surrounded by pine trees and wildflowers. There were statements showing monthly deposits from the rental properties. $1,500 here, $2,000 there. For years, while I'd been clipping coupons and worrying about heating bills, money had been flowing into an account I didn't even know existed. The construction company records showed it was thriving under good management. Thomas had set it up, so I'd receive quarterly dividends, substantial ones. I wasn't just comfortable. I was secure. Genuinely, deeply secure. And Angela had no idea. I picked up my phone and stared at it. Part of me wanted to call her right then, to tell her she'd messed with the wrong woman. But Thomas's words echoed in my mind. There's wisdom in patience. There's power in silence. So instead, I pulled out the business card attached to the documents. Benjamin Cole, attorney at law. Charlotte, North Carolina. I called the number. It rang twice. Cole and Associates. This is Benjamin speaking. His voice was warm, professional, young, but steady. Mr. Cole, my name is Ruby Watkins. My husband, Thomas. Mrs. Watkins. His tone changed immediately, becoming softer, almost reverent. I've been waiting for your call. I'm so sorry for your loss. Thomas was a remarkable man. You knew him. We met several times over the years to arrange the trust. He spoke about you constantly. He wanted everything perfect, wanted to make sure you'd be taken care of no matter what happened. My throat tightened. I just found the envelope. Then you know about the properties.
The trust.
Everything. I know enough to be confused and grateful and angry all at once. Benjamin chuckled softly.
That sounds about right.
Mrs. Watkins, would you be available to meet tomorrow? I think we should sit down and go through everything in detail. There are some decisions you'll need to make, and some legal matters we should address regarding what your daughter has done. She thinks she's sold my beach house.
Yes.
Thomas anticipated that possibility. The house she sold was actually a different property, one Thomas purchased specifically to satisfy the power of attorney arrangement if she ever tried to liquidate your assets. The real beach house, the one with your memories, is still entirely yours. I had to sit down again. My legs just gave out. He bought a decoy house? He bought 3, actually. Small properties in your name that would show up on paper if Angela went looking. He wanted her to have something to take if she chose that path, so she wouldn't dig deeper and find the real assets. Thomas had outmaneuvered our daughter from beyond the grave. Mr. Cole, what about the truck? She said she sold my Ford. That I don't know about. But if it's titled in your name, she couldn't legally sell it without your signature. We should look into that. We scheduled a meeting for the next afternoon. When I hung up, I sat in Thomas's chair and looked around his study with new eyes. My husband had been a quiet man, simple in his tastes. We'd lived modestly, never flashy, never drawing attention. I'd thought it was because we had to, because that's all we could afford. But Thomas had been playing chess while I'd been playing checkers. He'd built an empire in silence, protected it in secret, and left me holding all the pieces. Angela thought she'd strip me bare. She had no idea I was sitting on a fortune. That night, I didn't sleep much. I kept thinking about my daughter's voice on that phone call. Cold, dismissive, cruel. The way she talked about putting me in assisted living like I was a burden to be managed. Part of me still wanted to believe it wasn't really her. That James had pushed her into it, or stress had made her snap, or something, anything, that would explain how my baby girl had turned into a stranger. But Thomas's letter had been clear. He'd seen the change years ago, and he'd prepared for exactly this. So, I would do what he'd asked. I would be patient. I would be silent. And I would watch my daughter dig herself deeper into a hole she didn't even know existed. The next morning, I woke up to find an email from Angela. No, good morning, Mom. No, hope you're doing okay. Just a subject line that said beach house sale, your portion, and a message that was all business. Mom, attached is the bank information for your share of the beach house sale. After realtor fees, closing costs, and the loan payoff, your portion comes to $42,000. I've deposited it into your checking account. This should be more than enough for you to find a nice assisted living facility. I've also included contact information for 3 facilities in the Asheville area that have good reviews. The Meadowbrook Senior Community has an opening next month. I think you should take it. James and I are leaving for Paris this evening. Our flight is at 7. I won't have time to stop by, but I'll call you once we're settled. Take care of yourself. Angela. Take care of yourself. Not I love you. Not I'll miss you. Just take care of yourself. Like she was ending an email to a coworker she barely knew. I read that email sitting at my kitchen table with my morning coffee. The good stuff Thomas used to buy, the kind Angela always said was too expensive. My hand was steady as I set down my phone. $42,000. That's what she thought my beach house was worth after all her deductions. The house where Thomas had carried me over the threshold on our wedding night. Where we'd celebrated 20 anniversaries. Where our grandchildren had built sandcastles and collected seashells. $42,000, and she had the nerve to act like she was doing me a favor. I picked up my phone and called Benjamin Cole. Mrs. Watkins, he answered on the second ring. Good morning. I was just reviewing your file. Mr. Cole, I need to know something. That house Angela sold, the decoy property, what was it actually worth? Papers rustled on his end. Let me see. Thomas purchased it 8 years ago for $75,000. It's appreciated since then. Current market value would be around $110,000, maybe $120,000. So she'd pocketed the difference. Of course she had. And my real beach house? The one in the trust. The property in Myrtle Beach? Mrs. Watkins, that house is currently valued at around $1.2 million. Beachfront property in that area has skyrocketed in the last decade. I had to set down my coffee cup before I dropped it. She thinks she sold a $1 million house for $42,000? She thinks she sold a house worth maybe $120,000 and gave you $42,000 after costs. She's likely kept the rest for herself, which is embezzlement from your estate. But the real house, your house, she never touched. Couldn't touch. It's locked in the trust with your name on it, and only you can access it. I looked out my kitchen window at the morning sun climbing over the mountains. Mrs. Patterson was walking her dog. Mr. Chun from 3 houses down was getting his newspaper. The world looked exactly the same as it had yesterday, but everything had changed. Mr. Cole, I want you to do something for me. Of course. Don't contact Angela. Don't let her know about any of this. Let her think she got away with it. There was a pause. Mrs. Watkins, she's committed fraud. We could pursue criminal charges. Not yet. My voice came out stronger than I expected. Let her go to Paris. Let her spend that money. Let her think she's won. May I ask why? I thought about Thomas's letter, about the wisdom in patience. Because, Mr. Cole, I want her to get comfortable with her choices. I want her to build a whole new life on stolen money. And then, when the time is right, I want her to understand exactly what she's done. Another pause. Then, your husband said you were the strongest woman he'd ever met. I'm beginning to understand why. We confirmed our meeting for that afternoon, and I spent the morning doing something I hadn't done in months. I cleaned Thomas's study. Not to erase him, but to honor him. I dusted his books, organized his papers, polished the desk until it gleamed. And I talked to him. Out loud, like he was sitting right there. "You sneaky man," I said, running my hand over his favorite chair. All those years keeping secrets, building empires in silence. I smiled through tears. "You always were smarter than you let on." Around noon, my phone buzzed. A text from Angela. At the airport. "Talk soon." No, "I love you." No, "Goodbye." Just "talk soon," like she was heading out for groceries instead of abandoning her mother in a different country. I typed back, "Safe travels, baby. I love you." Because I did. God help me. I still loved my daughter, even as she was betraying me. That's what nobody tells you about being a mother. The love doesn't stop just because they hurt you. It just gets more complicated, more painful. She didn't respond. At 2 o'clock, I drove to Charlotte to meet Benjamin Cole. The drive was beautiful, late spring turning the mountains green and alive. Thomas and I used to take this drive all the time, stopping at little roadside stands to buy fresh honey and homemade jam. Benjamin's office was in a nice brick building downtown. He met me in the lobby himself, a tall man in his early 40s with kind eyes and a firm handshake. "Mrs. Watkins, it's truly an honor to meet you." His office was lined with law books and had a window overlooking the city. He'd prepared folders of documents, everything organized and labeled. For the next 3 hours, he walked me through my husband's legacy. The construction company was generating an annual income of around $180,000. The rental properties in Charleston brought in another $4,500 monthly. The trust had investments in stocks and bonds that had grown substantially. All told, I was worth just over $3 million. $3 million. I'd spent the last 6 months worrying about how to pay for heating oil. "Your husband was incredibly thorough," Benjamin explained, showing me statements and projections. "He set everything up so you'd have multiple income streams. You'll never have to worry about money again, Mrs. Watkins. You could live very comfortably for the rest of your life without touching the principal." And Angela doesn't know any of this? Not unless Thomas told her, which, based on his instructions, I doubt he did. I thought about my daughter on a plane right now, flying to Paris with her husband, probably celebrating her smart business decision to liquidate her elderly mother's assets. "What about the truck?" I asked. "She said she sold my Ford." Benjamin frowned. "Do you have the title?" "It should be in the filing cabinet at home." If the title's in your name and you didn't sign it over, she couldn't legally sell it. She might have forged your signature, or she might be lying about selling it. Either way, that's another crime to add to the list. When I got home that evening, I checked the filing cabinet. The truck title was gone. She'd taken it, probably forged my signature. Sold my truck, Thomas's truck, really, the one he taught her to drive in, and pocketed that money too. I sat at my kitchen table and did the math. The beach house money she'd kept for herself. The truck. She'd probably stolen close to $80,000 from me. And she'd done it without a second thought, then flown off to Paris like she'd just done her elderly mother a favor. My phone buzzed. Another email from Angela, this one sent from Paris. "Mom, we made it safely. The apartment is beautiful. James starts his new job Monday. I'll send pictures once we're settled. Hope you're looking into those assisted living facilities. The Meadowbrook place really is nice. They have activities and everything."
Talk next week.
Activities and everything. Like I was a child who needed to be kept busy. I closed my laptop and looked around my kitchen. The kitchen in the house I'd raised her in. The house she wanted to sell out from under me. Thomas's words echoed in my mind. There's power in silence. So, I didn't respond to her email. Didn't call. Didn't send pictures or ask about Paris or pretend everything was fine. I let silence do its work. And I started planning. Tooks passed without a word from Angela. Not a phone call. Not a text. Just silence from Paris while I quietly rebuilt my life from the ashes she thought she'd left me in. Benjamin Cole became my ally in ways I never expected. He wasn't just my lawyer, he became a friend, someone who understood what Thomas had been trying to protect me from. "Your husband was brilliant," Benjamin said during our third meeting. "He created layers of protection. Even if Angela had hired investigators, they wouldn't have found these assets. Everything's locked behind trusts and corporate structures." We sat in his office reviewing documents for the construction company. Bernard's old business was thriving under a management team that had no idea I existed until now. "So, what do you want to do?" Benjamin asked. "You could sell it, live off the proceeds. You could keep it as is and just collect dividends."
Or
What?" He smiled. "Or you could actually run it. Get involved. These guys would love to meet the owner. Your Uncle Bernard was legendary in the Virginia construction world." The idea terrified me. I was 72 years old. What did I know about running a construction company? But then I thought about Angela's voice on that phone call.
cold.
Dismissive. Treating me like I was already useless. "Set up a meeting," I said. "I want to meet the management team." Benjamin's smile widened. "Mrs. Watkins, I think your husband would be very proud." That weekend, I drove to the cabin in the mountains, the one Thomas had bought without telling me. Benjamin had given me the keys and the address, but nothing could have prepared me for what I found. The cabin sat on 15 acres of pristine woodland, surrounded by white pines and wild rhododendrons. It wasn't just a cabin, it was a full home, 3 bedrooms with a wraparound porch and a view that stole my breath. Thomas had furnished it. Everything was there, dishes in the cabinets, linens in the closets, family photos on the walls. Photos of us, of Angela when she was little, of happier times. I stood in the master bedroom looking at a picture of our family at the beach. Angela was maybe 8 years old, gap-toothed and grinning, her arms around both of us. Back when she still looked at me with love instead of calculation.
My phone rang.
Finally.
Angela.
"Mom." Her voice sounded strained. "Why haven't you answered my emails?" I sat down on the bed. This bed my husband had picked out, in this home he'd prepared for me. "I've been busy, baby." "Busy? Doing what?" "Did you look at those assisted living places?" I looked out the window at the mountains. "No, I haven't." Silence. Then, "Mom, you need to be realistic. You can't keep living in that big house by yourself. What if you fall? What if something happens?" "I'm 72, Angela. Not 92. I'm healthy. Strong. For now." Her voice went sharp, the way it always did when she wasn't getting her way. "Look, I'm just trying to help you. The money from the beach house won't last forever. You need a plan." The money from the beach house. The house she'd stolen and sold. The money she'd pocketed. "I have a plan," I said quietly. "Oh, what's that?" "I'm learning to live without my daughter." The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you sold my home, Angela. My memories. Your father's legacy. You did it without asking, without caring how it would hurt me. Then you got on a plane to Paris. I had power of attorney. You had my trust. And you betrayed it." I heard her breathing on the other end. Hard, angry breaths. "You know what, Mom? I don't need this. I called to check on you, and you're throwing a tantrum like a child." A tantrum. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You steal from me, and I'm the one having a tantrum?" "I didn't steal anything. Everything was legal. Maybe if you understood finances you'd." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I'd done it. I'd finally stood up to her. The phone rang again immediately.
Angela.
I let it go to voicemail. Then again. Voicemail. 5 more times she called. I didn't answer once. Finally, a text. "Fine. Be stubborn. Don't come crying to me when you're alone and broke." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I blocked her number. Not forever.
Just for now.
Just until I was ready. Benjamin called that evening. I heard from Angela's lawyer. My stomach dropped. She has a lawyer? She hired someone in Paris to send me a letter, basically threatening legal action if you contest the beach house sale. She's trying to intimidate you into accepting what she's done. Can she win? Mrs. Watkins, she sold a house she didn't own. She forged documents. She embezzled funds. If anyone should be worried about lawyers, it's her.
He paused.
But here's the interesting part. She doesn't know she should be worried. She thinks she covered her tracks perfectly. So what do?
We let her keep thinking that. Meanwhile, you live your life.
You've got the cabin now. You've got income. You've got security. Let her spend that stolen money in Paris while we build your case. After we hung up, I walked out onto the cabin's porch. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple Thomas would have loved. My daughter thought she'd left me with nothing. Thought I'd be begging her for help within months. Instead, I was standing on a porch of a home I owned, looking at land I owned, with more money than I'd ever dreamed of having. And she had no idea. 3 months passed like water over stones, steady, quiet, changing everything beneath the surface. I moved into the mountain cabin full-time. The Asheville house, the one Angela wanted to sell, I kept but rented out through a property management company. Let it generate income while I lived in the peace Thomas had built for me. The construction company meeting happened on a bright Tuesday morning in Virginia. I drove up the day before, stayed in a nice hotel, and walked into that conference room wearing my best dress and Thomas's wedding ring on a chain around my neck. 5 men stood when I entered. They'd been running Bernard's company for years, and their faces showed curiosity mixed with nervousness. The owner they'd never met had finally arrived. "Gentlemen," I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. "My name is Ruby Watkins. I'm Bernard's niece by marriage, and as of 6 months ago, I'm your new owner. Now, tell me how we're doing." For 3 hours, they walked me through contracts, projects, profit margins. I didn't understand half of it at first, but I listened, asked questions, took notes. By the end, the oldest one, a man named Frank who'd worked with Bernard for 30 years, was smiling. "Ma'am, if you don't mind me saying, you remind me of Bernard. He always said the smartest thing you can do is listen before you talk." "My husband taught me that," I said. "He was a wise man." Bernard talked about Thomas sometimes. Said he was lucky to have family like you two. Frank's eyes were kind. "I'm real sorry for your loss, Mrs. Watkins." Both of them. That meeting changed something in me. I wasn't just Thomas's widow anymore. I wasn't just Angela's discarded mother. I was a business owner. Someone with purpose. I started driving to Virginia once a month for meetings. Started learning the business. The men treated me with respect, and slowly, I began to understand what Thomas had left me. Not just money, but opportunity, legacy,
power.
Meanwhile, Angela's emails became less frequent. Once a week. Then once every 2 weeks. Always brief. Always focused on her new life in Paris. James got promoted. The apartment in Le Marais is perfect. We joined an expat social club. Never once did she ask how I was doing. Never apologized. Never acknowledged what she'd done. In July, for months after she'd left, I got a different kind of email. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something important. Can you call me?" I stared at those words. Something in the tone felt off. Desperate, almost. I didn't call. 2 days later, another email. "Mom, please. I really need to talk. It's urgent." Benjamin advised caution. Don't engage until you know what she wants. Could be a trap. But curiosity got the better of me. I unblocked her number and sent a text. "What's wrong?" She called within seconds.
"Mom."
Thank God. Her voice was different. Shakier. "I didn't know if you'd answer." "What do you want, Angela?" "It's James." She took a shuddering breath. "He's leaving me." The words hung in the air between us. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction. Karma coming around. But mostly I just felt sad. "What happened?" "There's someone at his office. A French woman. He's been seeing her." She was crying now, really crying. "Mom, I gave up everything for him.
Moved to Paris.
Left my whole life behind. And now he's just throwing me away like I'm nothing." The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd done the exact same thing to me. "I'm sorry you're hurting," I said carefully. "Can I come home?" I don't have anywhere else to go. James wants to keep the apartment. I'd have to find my own place, and everything here is so expensive. What about the money from the beach house? The truck? Silence. Long and heavy. That's gone. Gone? Angela, that was $80,000. The Paris apartment needed furniture. James's wardrobe for his new position. We joined clubs, went to dinners. It's expensive here, Mom. You don't understand how fast money goes in a city like this. She'd blown through $80,000, stolen money, in 4 months. So, you want to come back to Asheville? Just temporarily. Until I figure things out. I could stay in a house, help you manage things. The house is rented.
What?
Why would you rent it? Because I don't live there anymore. Another silence. Where are you living? Somewhere safe. Somewhere peaceful. Mom, I don't understand. Where are you getting money? How are you managing? There it was. The real question. She'd expected me to be desperate by now. Expected me to be grateful she was coming back. I'm managing just fine. But the assisted living. I'm not in assisted living, Angela. I'm in my own home, living my own life. On Social Security? Mom, that's barely. I need to go, I interrupted. I have a meeting. A meeting? What kind of meeting? Goodbye, Angela. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were steady this time. No shaking. No tears. Just a calm certainty that I'd done the right thing. She called back 5 times. I didn't answer. That night, Benjamin called. I heard from Angela's lawyer again. She's asking about the estate. Wants to know if there are any other assets she should be aware of. She's fishing. Exactly. She's broke. Her marriage is falling apart, and now she's wondering if she missed something.
He paused.
What do you want to do? I looked around the cabin, my cabin, at the life I'd built in silence while she'd been spending stolen money in Paris. Let her wonder, I said. Let her sweat. And when she's desperate enough, when she's hit absolute rock bottom, then we'll talk. You're playing the long game. Thomas taught me patience, I said. And my daughter's about to learn why that's a lesson she should have paid attention to. Augustiette's down on the mountains like a heavy blanket. I spent my days on the cabin porch, drinking sweet tea and reviewing construction reports. The company was bidding on a major project in Richmond, a development that could bring in substantial revenue. Frank called me personally to discuss strategy. Mrs. Watkins, if we win this bid, we're talking about expanding operations. Maybe hiring 20 more people. Then let's make sure we win it, I said. This was my life now. Business calls. Financial planning. Building something that would last beyond me. Angela's emails became daily.
Desperate. Mom, please.
James filed for divorce. I need help. The lawyer says I might get nothing because we kept everything in his name. I can't afford to stay here. Please just talk to me. Each email was another crack in the facade she'd built. The confident daughter who'd sold her mother's house without blinking was crumbling, and part of me, the part that had raised her, loved her, sacrificed for her, wanted to reach out. But Thomas's voice echoed in my memory. Let her understand what she's done. So I waited. In September, she called from a number I didn't recognize. I answered without thinking. Mom. Her voice was raw, broken. Thank God. My phone got cut off. I'm calling from a payphone at the train station. Angela. I'm coming home. I bought a ticket with my last credit card. I land in Charlotte tomorrow at 3 p.m. My heart stuttered. You can't stay at the Asheville house. I told you it's rented. Then I'll stay with you, wherever you are. Please, Mom. I have nowhere else to go. James took everything. The apartment, the bank accounts, everything. She was sobbing now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. Please don't turn your back on me. Those words, don't turn your back on me, they cut deep. Because that's exactly what she'd done to me 6 months ago. Text me your flight information, I said quietly. I can't text. My phone. Use the payphone. Send me the details somehow. Mom, will you pick me up? From the airport. I looked out at the mountains, at the life I'd built in her absence. I'll be there. After I hung up, I called Benjamin. She's coming back, I said.
Broke. Divorced.
Desperate. So, it's time? It's time. The next afternoon, I drove to Charlotte Douglas International Airport. I arrived early, parked, and waited in the cell phone lot with my hands gripping the steering wheel. This was my daughter coming home. My baby girl, who I'd rocked through nightmares and nursed through illnesses. The same daughter who'd stolen from me and abandoned me without a second thought. I didn't know which version would walk through those doors. At 3:15, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Landed. Baggage claim B. I drove to the pickup area and waited. People streamed out with their luggage, hugging family members, laughing, starting vacations, or coming home. Then I saw her. Angela looked nothing like the polished woman who'd left for Paris. Her hair was unwashed, pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore jeans and a wrinkled t-shirt, dragging a single suitcase that had seen better days. Her face was pale, eyes red and swollen. She looked defeated. When she spotted my car, relief flooded her features. She rushed over, threw her suitcase in the back, and climbed into the passenger seat. Mom. She reached for me, and I let her hug me. She smelled like airport and desperation and old perfume. Thank you. Thank you for coming. I pulled away from the curb without responding. Where are we going? She asked as we merged onto the highway. Somewhere we can talk. We drove in silence for 20 minutes. Angela kept glancing at me, then out the window, then back at me, fidgeting with her hands, nervous energy radiating off her. When we turned onto the mountain road leading to the cabin, she frowned. Where are we? Almost there. The cabin came into view, beautiful and solid against the backdrop of pine trees and blue sky. Angela's mouth fell open. Mom, whose house is this? Mine. I parked and got out. She followed slowly, staring at the cabin like it might disappear. I don't understand. How can you afford this? Come inside. The cabin's interior always took my breath away. The high ceilings, the natural light, the warmth. I'd made it my own over the past months, adding touches Thomas would have loved. Angela stood in the doorway, frozen. Mom, what's going on? Where did you get the money for this place? I walked to the kitchen and poured 2 glasses of sweet tea. Set one on the counter for her. Your father bought it 5 years ago. That's impossible. Dad didn't have this kind of money. Sit down, Angela. We need to talk. She sat at the kitchen table, Thomas's table, and I sat across from her. For a long moment, I just looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. She'd aged in 6 months. New lines around her eyes. A hardness that hadn't been there before. Or maybe it had, and I just refused to see it. The beach house you sold. I began. It wasn't mine. Her face went pale. What? Your father anticipated you might try something like what you did. So he bought properties, decoy properties, that would show up if you went looking. The real beach house, the one with our memories, is still mine. Always was. That's not possible. I had power of attorney over jointly held assets. Not over your father's personal trust. I took a sip of tea. The construction company, Bernard left him. The rental properties in Charleston. This cabin. Investments. Bank accounts. All of it in a trust with my name on it. Angela's hands started shaking. How much? Does it matter? Mom, how much? Enough that I'll never need help from anyone. Enough that I could have stopped you from stealing, but I chose not to. I wanted to see what you would do. And you showed me exactly who you've become. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I didn't know. Mom, I swear I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't ask. You just took. You sold what you thought was my home, my truck, my security. Then you flew to Paris and spent the money like it was nothing. I'm sorry. You told me to move into assisted living. You called me once in 6 months. You treated me like I was already dead and just hadn't figured it out yet. She was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. I know what I did. James, he convinced me that I was being smart, protecting my future. He said you'd be fine, that you didn't need all that space. And I believed him because it was easier than facing what I was really doing. Which was what? She looked up at me with eyes full of pain. Choosing money over you. Choosing my marriage over my mother. And now I've lost everything. James is gone. The money's gone. And you. Her voice broke. You should hate me. Why don't you hate me? I stood and walked to the window. Outside, a cardinal landed on the porch railing, bright red against the weathered wood. Because you're my daughter, I said quietly. And because your father taught me that love doesn't mean being a doormat. It means having boundaries. It means letting people face consequences so they can learn and grow. What happens now? I turned to face her. Now you stay here for a few days while we figure things out. But understand something, Angela. I'm not the same woman you left behind. I'm not helpless. I'm not desperate. And I won't be treated that way ever again. She nodded, wiping her face. I understand.
Do you?
Because tomorrow we're going to see Benjamin Cole, my lawyer, and you're going to face what you did. Her eyes widened. Are you pressing charges? That depends on you. That night, Angela slept in the guest room while I lay awake in my bed, listening to the mountain sounds outside my window. Crickets. Whine through the pines. The distant call of an owl. My daughter was under my roof again, but everything had changed. She wasn't the Angela who'd left, confident, cold, dismissive. This Angela was broken, scared, stripped of all the pretense that had built up over the years. Part of me felt vindicated, but mostly, I just felt tired. Around dawn, I heard movement in the kitchen. I pulled on my robe and found Angela sitting at the table, staring at a cup of coffee like it held answers. Couldn't sleep? I asked. She shook her head. Every time I close my eyes, I see your face when I called you about the beach house. The way your voice changed. I knew I was hurting you, Mom. I knew it, and I did it anyway. I poured my own coffee and sat down. Why? Because James made it sound so reasonable. He'd say things like, your mother's getting older. She needs to simplify her life. We're helping her by taking care of the difficult decisions. And I wanted to believe him because she stopped swallowing hard. Because it was easier than admitting my marriage was falling apart. James needed money for his Paris dream, and I needed to believe we were still a team. So I convinced myself that selling your house was practical, smart, the right thing to do. Even though I begged you not to. Even though. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. I heard you crying on the phone, and I hung up anyway. What kind of person does that? The kind who's lost their way, I said quietly. The kind your father was afraid you might become. Her face crumpled. Daddy knew. He saw it happening. The way money started mattering more than people. The way you pulled away from us after you married James. He hoped he was wrong, but he prepared for the possibility he wasn't. That's why he created the trust. To protect me. From my own daughter. Angela buried her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs that made my heart ache despite everything. I don't know how to fix this, she whispered. Maybe you can't. Maybe some things stay broken. I reached across the table and touched her hand. But you can start by being honest. With me. With yourself. About everything. She looked up. What do you mean? The money from the beach house. The truck. Where did it really go? Angela took a shaky breath. James had debt I didn't know about. Credit cards, personal loans. When he got the Paris job, he said we needed to start fresh with a clean slate. So she couldn't meet my eyes. I used the money to pay off his debts first. Then the rest went to the apartment, furniture, his wardrobe. He said we were investing in our future. But there was no R. Was there?
No.
He was already seeing Claudette. Had been for months, before we even moved. I was just, her voice broke. I was just the stupid American wife with access to money. The truth settled between us like broken glass. My daughter had betrayed me to save a marriage that was already dead. She'd stolen from her mother to pay for her husband's affair. Angela, did you forge my signature on the truck title? She nodded, shame written across her face. James knew a guy.
I'm so sorry, Mom.
I'm so sorry. At 9 o'clock, we drove to Charlotte for our appointment with Benjamin. Angela was quiet the whole way, staring out the window at the passing landscape. Benjamin's office felt different this time, less like a refuge and more like a courtroom. He greeted us both professionally, his eyes moving between me and Angela with careful assessment. Mrs. Watkins.
Angela.
Please sit down. We sat across from his desk. Angela's hands were clenched in her lap, knuckles white. Benjamin opened a folder. Angela, I'm going to be direct with you. Over the past 6 months, you've committed multiple felonies.
Fraud. Forgery.
Embezzlement. Your mother has every legal right to press charges, and given the amount of money involved, you'd likely face serious prison time. Angela's face went gray. I understand.
Do you?
Because from where I'm sitting, you stole roughly $80,000 from your mother, forged legal documents, and then fled the country. These aren't minor offenses. I know. Her voice was barely a whisper. Benjamin looked at me. Mrs. Watkins, the decision is yours. We can file criminal charges today. Or we can pursue civil remedies, full restitution plus damages. Or, he paused, we can try a different approach. What approach? I asked. Accountability, without destruction. Angela repays every cent she took with interest. She signs legal documents acknowledging what she did. She gives up any future claims to your estate. And she rebuilds her relationship with you through action, not words. Angela's head snapped up. You'd give me that chance? After everything? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. I saw the frightened little girl who used to climb into bed with me during thunderstorms. I saw the teenager who'd cried on my shoulder after her first heartbreak. I saw the woman she'd become, broken and humbled and finally understanding the weight of her choices. Your father believed in second chances, I said. But this is the only one you get. You mess up again and I won't hesitate. Tears streamed down her face. Thank you, Mom. Thank you. I'll pay back every penny. I'll get a job. I'll work 3 jobs if I have to. You'll start by being honest about where you are right now. No more pretending. No more pride. I turned to Benjamin. Draw up the papers. Everything we discussed. For the next hour, Benjamin walked us through documents. Angela signed papers acknowledging her theft, agreeing to a repayment plan, waiving any inheritance rights. Her hand shook with every signature, but she didn't hesitate. When we finished, Benjamin handed her a folder. This is your copy. Keep it somewhere safe. And Angela, your mother is being incredibly generous. Don't waste it. I won't. I promise. On the drive back to the cabin, Angela was quiet for a long time. Then, can I ask you something? Go ahead. The construction company, the rental properties, all of it. Are you really managing everything yourself? I'm learning. I have good people helping me. But yes, I'm involved in every decision. That's amazing, Mom. I always thought. She stopped. Thought what? Thought you were just Dad's wife. Just a homemaker. I didn't see how strong you really were. How capable. That's because I didn't show you. Your father and I, we believed in living simply. In not drawing attention. But simple doesn't mean weak. She nodded slowly. I'm starting to understand that. When we got back to the cabin, Angela helped me make dinner, something we hadn't done together in years. We moved around the kitchen in careful silence, passing ingredients, working together the way we used to when she was young. As we sat down to eat, she said, "What happens tomorrow?" Tomorrow, you start looking for work. You start rebuilding. And you start showing me through actions that you've learned from this. And us? Can we be okay again someday? I looked at my daughter across the table. At the woman who'd betrayed me and lost everything because of it. At my child, who I loved despite the pain. Someday, I said. But it starts with tomorrow. September melted into October, and the mountains exploded in color. Reds and golds and oranges that took my breath away every morning. Angela stayed in the guest room, and slowly, carefully, we built something new between us. It wasn't the relationship we'd had before. That was gone, buried with the trust she'd broken. But this new thing, fragile and honest, it had potential. She found work at a diner in town, waiting tables 6 days a week. I watched her come home exhausted, feet aching, smelling like grease and coffee. The woman who'd lived in Paris wearing designer clothes now wore a stained apron and sensible shoes. "How was your day?" I'd ask each evening. "Hard," she'd say honestly. "But good. I'm learning." She gave me her first paycheck, all of it, toward the debt she owed. $347 after taxes. "Angela, you need to keep some for yourself. For basic expenses."
"No." Her voice was firm.
"I owe you $80,000 plus interest. Every penny I earn goes toward that until it's paid." I wanted to argue, but I saw something in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. Determination. Purpose.
So I took the check.
"Thank you." The construction company won the Richmond bid in late September. Frank called me personally, excitement bubbling in his voice. "Mrs. Watkins, we did it. This is the biggest contract we've landed in 15 years. I found myself grinning like a fool. "When do we start?" "Next month. We'll need to hire additional crew, maybe lease more equipment. I'd love for you to come up and meet with the team, help us plan the rollout." Angela was sitting at the kitchen table when I hung up. She'd been filling out job applications on her laptop, searching for additional work to speed up a repayment. "Good news?" she asked. I told her about the contract, about the expansion, about how the business Thomas had left me was thriving. "Mom, that's incredible." She smiled, genuine warmth in her eyes. "You're really good at this." "I'm learning. Your father believed in me more than I believed in myself. He was smart that way." Angela's voice went soft. "I wish I'd listened to him more. About a lot of things." "Like what?" "Like James. Dad never trusted him, did he?" I sat down across from her. "Your father wanted you to be happy. But no, he didn't trust James. He saw how James looked at money, at status. How he looked at you. Like a stepping stone. Like something to use." Angela closed her laptop. "I was so angry at you and Dad back then. Thought you were being judgmental. Couldn't see that you were trying to protect me. We can't always protect our children from their choices. Sometimes we can only catch them when they fall. And you caught me. Even after her voice cracked. Even after everything, you caught me. That's what mothers do." In November, I drove to Virginia for a site visit. Angela asked if she could come along, and I surprised myself by saying yes. We made the drive together, talking more honestly than we had in years. She told me about the loneliness in Paris, the slow realization that her marriage was a lie. I told her about finding Thomas's letter, the shock of learning about the trust. "He really thought of everything," Angela said, staring out at the passing landscape. "He loved us both, but he loved wisely." At the construction site, Frank and his team showed us around. They'd already broken ground, and the skeleton of the new development was taking shape. "Mrs. Watkins, I'd like you to meet the crew." Frank gestured to a group of workers. "Folks, this is Ruby Watkins, Bernard's niece and our owner." They greeted me with respect, shaking my hand with calloused palms. Hardworking men and women building something real with their hands. One of them, a young woman named Lisa, smiled at me. "Mr. Frank says you're planning to expand. Does that mean more jobs?" "That's exactly what it means," I said. "We're hoping to hire 20 more people over the next year." The pride in their faces, the gratitude, it hit me hard. This wasn't just about money. This was about providing for families, creating opportunities, building community. On the drive home, Angela was quiet for a long time. Then, "You're really making a difference, Mom. Those people, they respect you. They're grateful for what you're doing. It feels good. Better than I expected. Better than being the helpless widow I tried to make you." Her honesty caught me off guard.
"Yes."
"Much better than that."
"Good."
She reached over and squeezed my hand. "You deserve to be seen for who you really are." By Thanksgiving, Angela had made 7 payments toward her debt. $2,400 total. It would take years at this rate, but she never complained, never asked for mercy. We spent Thanksgiving at the cabin, just the two of us. I cooked a small turkey with all the fixings, and we ate on the porch despite the cold, wrapped in blankets and watching the sunset. This time last year, I was planning the Paris move, Angela said. Thought I had everything figured out. Thought I was so smart. And now I'm a waitress living in my mother's guest room, $77,000 in debt. She smiled sadly. But I'm happier than I was then. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. Sometimes we have to lose everything to find what matters. Like you did. When I took everything from you. Like I did. I agreed. Though it turned out I hadn't lost as much as either of us thought. She laughed, a real laugh, the kind I remembered from when she was young. Dad really got the last laugh, didn't he?
He did.
And I think he'd be proud of both of us right now. Me for standing up for myself. You for facing what you did. Do you think, she hesitated, do you think he'd forgive me? I looked at my daughter, at the woman she was becoming through struggle and humility. Baby, he already has. Your father loved you unconditionally. He just wanted you to love yourself enough to be better. I'm trying. I know you are. As December approached, bringing the first snow to the mountains, I realized something profound. Angela's betrayal had broken me initially. But from those broken pieces, I'd built something stronger. Not just wealth or security, though those mattered, but purpose, identity, strength I didn't know I possessed. And Angela, stripped of everything she'd valued, was finding herself too. Finding out who she was without money, without a husband to hide behind, without the props that had held her up. We were both becoming new people. The question was whether these new people could build a relationship worth having. Christmas morning arrived with fresh snow covering the mountains like powdered sugar. I woke early, made coffee, and stood at the window watching the world transform into something clean and new. Angela appeared in the doorway, wrapped in an old robe I'd given her. Merry Christmas, Mom. Merry Christmas, baby. We'd agreed to keep it simple, no expensive gifts, no pretense. Just presents. Just being together in a way we hadn't been in years. I'd wrapped a small box for her, a silver necklace with a compass charm. So you always know which way is home, I said as she opened it.
She cried.
Put it on immediately. I love it. I love you. Her gift to me was a photo album she'd been working on secretly. Pictures of us through the years, her as a baby in my arms, family vacations, holidays, moments I'd forgotten. She'd written captions beside each photo in her careful handwriting. I wanted you to remember the good times, she said. Before I ruined everything. These memories, they're real too. They matter. I held that album against my chest and let the tears come. They do matter. All of it matters, the good and the bad. It's all part of our story. We spent Christmas Day cooking together, watching old movies, talking about everything and nothing. It felt peaceful in a way I'd stopped hoping for. That evening, my phone rang. Benjamin Cole. Mrs. Watkins, I hate to call on Christmas, but something's come up. James, Angela's ex-husband, he's been arrested in Paris. My stomach dropped. For what? Financial fraud. Apparently, he's been running schemes for years. The French authorities have frozen all his assets, and they're investigating everyone associated with him. Angela's name came up. I looked at my daughter, who was curled up on the couch reading. She looked peaceful, content, finally healing. What does this mean for her? Probably nothing. She wasn't involved in his schemes. But they'll want to interview her, verify she had no knowledge of his activities.
He paused.
There's more. James's assets, the ones they've frozen, include money from the beach house sale. The real beach house Angela thought she sold. Wait, what? Remember, she sold the decoy property Thomas set up. But James convinced her it was the real one. Then he pocketed the money. That money's now frozen in his accounts. The French government will likely seize it as part of their case. I sat down heavily. So the money she stole is gone.
Truly gone.
Not spent on furniture and clothes, but stolen by James and now locked up in a criminal investigation. Benjamin's voice was gentle. Mrs. Watkins, Your daughter was a victim too. James used her to steal from you, then stole from her. After I hung up, I sat there processing. Angela had betrayed me, yes. But she'd been manipulated, used, discarded. The man she'd chosen over me had destroyed both our lives. Mom, Angela looked up from her book. Who was that? Benjamin. Angela, we need to talk about James. I told her everything. About the arrest, the fraud, the frozen assets. I watched her face go through shock, disbelief, anger, and finally, a strange kind of relief. So, he was using me the whole time. Even before Paris. It looks that way. She laughed bitterly. I betrayed my mother for a con artist. God, I'm such an idiot. You were manipulated by someone who knew exactly how to play you. That doesn't excuse what I did. I still made those choices. No, it doesn't excuse it, but it explains it. I moved to sit beside her. Angela, the French authorities will want to talk to you. Benjamin will help you through it. But this means the money, all of it, it's gone. You can't pay me back from what James took. I know. I'll still pay you back. It'll just take longer. I'll work extra shifts, find a second job. Angela, stop. I took her hands. I don't need the money. I never needed it. What I needed was for you to understand what you did. To take responsibility.
To change.
And you've done that. But the debt. Consider it forgiven. Not forgotten. We'll never forget. But forgiven. She stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. You're serious? Your father left me more than enough. The money doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that you learned. That you grew. That you're becoming the person I always knew you could be. Angela broke down completely. Not the quiet tears from before, but deep, racking sobs that came from somewhere profound. I held her the way I'd held her when she was little, rocking her, stroking her hair, letting her cry out years of guilt and shame and regret. I don't deserve this, she whispered. I don't deserve your forgiveness. None of us deserve the grace we're given. We just accept it and try to be better. Later that night, after Angela had gone to bed, I stood on the porch looking at the stars. Thomas felt close somehow, like he was standing right beside me. You knew, I said to the night air. You knew all of it. James's nature. Angela's weakness. The path we'd have to walk to get here. The wind whispered through the pines, carrying snow and moonlight and something that felt like peace.
Thank you, I said, for protecting me, for believing in me,
for loving us both enough to plan for our healing. Inside, my daughter slept in the guest room, free from debt, free from a toxic marriage, free to finally become who she was meant to be. And I stood in the home Thomas had built for me, wearing a life he designed, stronger than I'd ever been. The betrayal had broken us both. But from those broken pieces, we'd built something new. Something honest. Something worth keeping. Spring came to the mountains like a promise kept. The dogwoods bloomed white and pink along the cabin's driveway, and the smell of fresh earth and new growth filled the air. I stood on the porch with my morning coffee, watching the world wake up, and thought about how different I felt from the woman I'd been a year ago. That woman. The one who'd stood in her kitchen with flour on her hands while her daughter stole everything. She felt like a stranger now. Angela had moved out in February, into a small apartment in town. Not because I'd asked her to leave, but because she'd said she needed to stand on her own feet. Needed to prove to herself that she could. I can't heal in your shadow, Mom, she'd explained. I need to know I can make it by myself. I'd understood. Helped her move her things, gave her some furniture from storage. Watched her drive away, with pride instead of fear. She still came for Sunday dinners. Still called me twice a week. But there was distance now, healthy distance that gave us both room to breathe. The construction company had expanded beyond my wildest dreams. We completed the Richmond project ahead of schedule and under budget, and now we had contracts lined up for the next 3 years. Frank had started calling me the boss with genuine affection, and the crew respected me not because I owned the company, but because I'd proven I cared about their work and their well-being. I'd hired 3 new women to the management team, something Bernard had never done. The company was changing, growing, becoming something more inclusive and forward-thinking. In March, Benjamin called with news. The French authorities have concluded their investigation. James is going to prison for 15 years. And Mrs. Watkins, they've recovered some of the stolen funds. You're entitled to restitution. How much? About $35,000. Not everything, but something. Give it to Angela. Mrs. Watkins. Benjamin, give it to my daughter. She needs a fresh start and I don't need the money. Let something good come from James's crimes. He'd argued, but eventually agreed. When Angela found out, she'd called me crying. Mom, I can't accept this. You can and you will. Put it toward a future. Maybe go back to school. Start a business. Whatever you want, but something that's yours. I was thinking about culinary school. The diner owner says I have talent. Then do it. Build something you love. Now, in April, I sat in my lawyer's office for what Benjamin had called an important meeting. Angela sat beside me, nervous and uncertain about why I'd asked her to come. Mrs. Watkins, Angela, thank you for coming. Benjamin spread papers across his desk. We're here to discuss estate planning. Angela's face went pale. Mom, I signed away my inheritance rights. I don't expect. Hush, I said gently. Just listen. Benjamin smiled. Mrs. Watkins has decided to restructure her estate. Angela, your mother is creating a trust in your name, not as an inheritance, but as a legacy she wants to build with you. I don't understand. I turned to face my daughter. Baby, I'm 73 years old. I'm healthy, thank God, but I won't be here forever. And when I'm gone, I don't want you to get a pile of money you didn't earn. I want you to have something better. What? A partnership. I'm putting you through culinary school. When you graduate, we're opening a restaurant together. You'll run it, I'll provide the capital, and we'll build it as a team. The construction company, the rental properties, the investments, those will fund our venture and eventually transfer to you when I'm gone. But not as a handout, as something you helped create. Tears streamed down Angela's face. Mom, I don't deserve this. Maybe not, but you're earning it every day. By showing up, by working hard, by being honest about who you are and who you want to become. I took her hand. Your father left me a legacy. Now I'm leaving you one. Not just money, but opportunity, purpose, the chance to build something meaningful. I won't let you down. I know you won't. Benjamin walked us through the details, the culinary school enrollment, the business plan for the restaurant, the trust structure that would protect both of us. It would take years to build, but we had time. And more importantly, we had each other. That evening, Angela and I drove back to the mountains together. She was talking excitedly about restaurant concepts, menu ideas, design elements. The passion in her voice reminded me of when she was young, before money and status had corrupted her dreams. Mom, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think Dad would be proud of us? Of what we've become? I thought about Thomas, his careful planning, his quiet wisdom, his absolute faith that love could survive anything if you gave it room to grow. Baby, I think your father orchestrated all of this. The trust, the properties, the way he protected me, while still giving you room to fail and learn from it. He knew exactly what we both needed. He was playing chess while we were playing checkers. I laughed. That's exactly what I said when I first found out. We pulled up to the cabin just as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Angela hugged me before getting in her car to drive home. Thank you, Mom. For everything. For not giving up on me. Thank you for coming back. For doing the hard work of changing. After she left, I walked through the cabin. This home Thomas had built for me in secret. This sanctuary he'd prepared knowing I'd need it. Every room held memories now. Not just of him, but of my own transformation. Of the business meetings I'd held at the kitchen table. Of the Sunday dinners with Angela where we'd slowly rebuilt trust. Of quiet mornings watching the mountains and feeling genuinely content for the first time in years. I found Thomas's letter in my nightstand drawer. I'd read it so many times the creases were wearing thin, but his words still had power. You are not poor. You are not helpless. You are not dependent on our daughter's mercy.
He'd been right. About all of it.
I wasn't the woman my daughter had tried to put in assisted living. I wasn't the helpless widow grieving in an empty house. I was Ruby Watkins, business owner, property manager, mother who'd learned that love sometimes means letting people fall so they can learn to stand. My phone buzzed. A text from Angela. I love you, Mom. Thank you for believing in the woman I could become, even when I'd forgotten her myself. I typed back. I love you too, baby. Your father and I always knew she was in there. We're glad she's finally home. Outside, the first fireflies of spring began to glow in the gathering dusk. I poured myself a glass of wine, the good stuff, the kind I used to think was too expensive, and sat on the porch Thomas had built. The beach house, my real beach house, was still mine. The construction company was thriving. The rental properties generated steady income. The cabin stood solid and beautiful around me. But more than all of that, I had my daughter back. Not the way she'd been, but better. Humbled.
Honest.
Working toward becoming someone worthy of the second chance she'd been given. Some people might say I should have pressed charges. Should have made her pay for every penny she stole. Should have turned my back the way she'd turned hers on me. But Thomas had taught me something more valuable than revenge. He taught me that the strongest thing you can do is build something better from the broken pieces. That wisdom beats vengeance every single time. That love, real love, means giving people room to fail and grace to try again. My daughter had sold what she thought was my beach house. She'd forged documents, stolen money, abandoned me when I needed her most. But what she didn't know was that her father had protected me from the worst of it, had given me the tools to survive her betrayal and thrive beyond it, had created a path that would lead us both to healing if we were brave enough to walk it. And we had been, both of us, brave enough to face hard truths, brave enough to change, brave enough to rebuild what had been shattered. I raised my glass to the mountains, to the sunset, to Thomas wherever he was watching. We made it, my love. Both of us. We made it through. The stars began appearing one by one, and somewhere in the distance, I heard Angela's favorite bird, a mockingbird, singing its evening song. The sound carried on the spring breeze, full of hope and new beginnings. My name is Ruby Watkins. I'm 73 years old. I own a construction company, rental properties, and a mountain cabin that takes my breath away every single morning. But more than all of that, I am a woman who learned that betrayal doesn't have to destroy you, that you can be 72 and starting over, that the strongest revenge is living well and loving wisely. My daughter tried to take everything from me. Instead, she gave me the chance to discover who I really was. And honey, let me tell you, that woman, she's stronger than either of us ever imagined. Thank you for being here. If this story touched your heart, if you've ever faced betrayal or fought to rebuild after loss, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment telling me where you're watching from, and share this story with someone who needs to know that it's never too late to start over. Subscribe to hear more stories about family, faith, and finding strength you didn't know you had. Remember, you're never too old to become who you were meant to be. And sometimes the hardest moments of our lives are just the beginning of our greatest transformations. God bless you all.